Tad, this is a complicated story with a lot of twists and turns, but it all begins with a question of blood and a brutal murder. In February of 2000, the chairman at Winnemucca was 66-year-old Glenn Wasson. A decorated veteran of World War II, Wasson was in the mold of the traditional Indian leader. There is federal money, millions of it, sitting in trust for the Shoshone, payment for the land they argue they never surrendered. Some want to accept the money, as well as other federal grants and benefits. Wasson was not among them.
He was opposed to this distribution that President Bush and Congress forced through about a year and a half ago of $140 million.
Not everyone felt that way. Among them, a young man who had been adopted by a tribal member. William Bills had won a seat on the tribal council and was arguing the tribe should build a casino. Wasson believed otherwise. He also believed Bills was writing checks on the tribe's account without proper authority. And he discovered Bills was not even a Native American. His birth certificate shows he was 100% Filipino. Tribal and colony membership is only open to those with at least 1/4 Indian ancestry. February 12th, at a tribal council meeting, Wasson presented his proof.
And he has no Paiute or Shoshone blood. He is not qualified to be a member, the way we sit right now. And there's rumors spread that we're writing checks all over the place.
Wasson said he would move to have Bills removed from the tribe and the council in the next meeting. 10 days later, Wasson would be dead and Bills would be in charge. February 23rd, Glenn Wasson was found lying in a pool of blood. He had been stabbed 13 times. It's believed Wasson was killed sometime around 9 o'clock at night. His body lay undiscovered out here until the next morning. But it would take investigators hours longer to reach the scene. And some would say that slow response says a lot about the investigation that followed.
He said he died of a heart attack, is what the FBI guy told me. And I said, no. I said, there's too much blood.
Within 24 hours, the blood had been washed from the sidewalk. A few days later, Bills, now acting as chairman, sold the very ground around the crime scene as topsoil to a local contractor. Nearly 6 years later, Glenn Wasson's murder remains unsolved.
That murder's never been investigated. There's been a conscious and deliberate failure to investigate that murder from day one.
Bob Hager represents the Winnemucca Tribal Council, a body that claims to be the legitimate authority for the colony today. Files for his long legal fight to establish that authority and press other tribal claims fill boxes and cabinets in his Reno office. Among them, copies of a series of cashier's checks bought by the colony smoke shop in the months following Wasson's death. They totaled more than $50,000. In a sworn statement, another tribal member says he saw a colony resident cash them in Winnemucca casinos. There's no apparent explanation for these checks. The man had not been a colony employee. Hager says the evidence was offered to investigators years ago. To date, he says, the FBI has not responded.
What it reflects in the minds of the enrolled members at the Winnemucca Indian Colony is a lack of concern with regard to the murder of a tribal member.
And to those close to him, those who followed him, Glenn Wasson's death remains an open wound.
They took away our leader. They took away my teacher. He was my sweat lodge leader and my friend.
Immediately, Bills moved to fill the vacuum left by Wasson's death. He brought with him Alan Ambler. Ambler was then chairman of the Lovelock Colony.
I was asked to assist them in writing grants and trying to get some contracts to provide services for the people that lived here.
Bills put Ambler under contract to run the colony's only source of income, the Winnemucca Smoke Shop. In the months that followed, the other members of the tribal council say they were forced out, even arrested when they attempt to hold a new election. The Bureau of Indian Affairs first recognized Bills as chairman, in spite of questions about his ethnic background, and then Wasson's brother Sharon, and finally, no one, declaring the colony dysfunctional. Over the years, the legal struggle over the colony leadership has been in and out of court. Today, it languishes in the Intertribal Court of Appeals. A new tribal council sits in Winnemucca, the old council meets in exile, and Ambler continues to run the smoke shop, to the dismay of those who represent the exiled council.
We're coming on $2 million in net profit that has been stolen under the nose of the BIA, with the BIA complicity since that assassination. That's what's happened.
Ambler's one-time ally, William Bills, is facing charges in California. Neither he nor his attorney would give an interview, but we did obtain a statement in which he accuses Ambler of violating his contract to run the smoke shop and seizing authority in Winnemucca, saying Ambler has done this before on other reservations.
These are just accusations. They're false accusations. I mean, you said you've done the research. I've never been charged. I've never been arrested.
Ambler says money from the smoke shop is going into tribal accounts to be used for social services when and if the BIA recognizes some authority there. Bank records show thousands of dollars transferred to a corporation owned by Ambler. Ambler, who has had a long career as a consultant, says these transfers are payment under his contract. One might expect the Bureau of Indian Affairs to help settle the matter with some oversight, but they say they can't. Bob Hunter, the director of the Western Indian Agency, first agreed to, then canceled an interview. He did tell us over the phone, though, the BIA has no business monitoring the funds from the smoke shop. As for the leadership dispute, he referred us to the agency's answering brief in a lawsuit brought by the exiled council, which argues the BIA can't step in until it's exhausted all legal courses in tribal court. As the legal fight drags on, there's general agreement the current situation benefits no one.
It isn't good for anybody because the people suffer and there's services that should be provided for housing, health, social services that's available that they just have never had the opportunity to enjoy.
It's basically a rogue reservation. 320 acres of America, which is the Winnemucca Indian Colony, there's no law there at all. The BIA not recognizing a problem like that that's what makes the problem itself, and that's a danger to the community, to the county, to American citizens in general.
The power struggle may have started earlier with a proposal for an Indian casino. That idea surfaced again this year, but in an unexpected location. There is one last strange chapter to this story, and it takes place far from the Winnemucca Indian Colony. Bill's proposal was an Indian casino here at Flag City along Interstate 5, 7 miles outside Lodi, 275 miles from the Winnemucca Indian Colony. Telling local officials he was the tribal chairman in Winnemucca, he said he had plans to build a 20,000-square-foot casino named the Great Basin. The casino would be owned by and operated for the benefit, he said, of the colony in Winnemucca. By all accounts, the casino proposal was going nowhere. Local officials were highly skeptical of William Bills. They'd soon have another reason to doubt him. On September 25th, Bills walked into this Wells Fargo bank in downtown Lodi. Bank officials say he identified himself as the chairman of the Winnemucca colony, and he wanted to access tribal accounts containing as much as $250,000.
The bank officials did some research and determined that the documents he was providing were false. The bank officials called the Lodi Police Department and indicated that he was going to be returning to supply more documents in order to access his account. When he returned 2 days later, Lodi detectives were waiting. And some of the IDs that he presented to the bank officials indicating that he had access to the account later determined to be fraudulent. ID badges belonging to, that he actually manufactured, indicating he was an official of the Department of the Interior, and he also had a homemade badge.
Bills was arrested. Today he's facing charges of fraud and possession of false government documents. His bid for a casino gone, still claiming to be chairman, at one point arguing he's protected by diplomatic immunity and can only be tried in tribal court. The case against him in Lodi appears solid. Back in Winnemucca, the murder that started it all is unsolved, and the struggle for control of the colony and its assets drags on in court. The colony today still lacks basic infrastructure and basic social services. A resident called last night to dispute the claim voiced by someone in our story that there was no law there. There is, she said, but she admitted the closest law enforcement with authority to enter the colony were BIA officers in Lovelock or McDermott, an hour away. People should be able to expect better from a government charged with their welfare. Ed Pierce, News Channel 8.